Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Modern Market, where every day we discuss all things to do with the market. That is the crypto market, the NFT market, the metals market, the stock market. We're expanding in 2026 because we think that that is important to do. Either way, trying to make some or a lot of money on the internet. Loaded up discussions today. We've got S&P hitting new all-time highs. Bitcoin falls to 92K. MSCI decides not to exclude DATs like MicroStrategy from indexes. We'll touch on what that means. MicroStrategy moved up as a consequence. And finally, Hyperliquid shares a map of Hyperliquid developments and achievements, sparking some airdrop rumors. Thought it might be useful to go back there and touch on how Hyperliquid has been doing. And like I say, we've got Kain from Infinex joining us on the show a little bit later today in partnership with us today. So excited for that conversation around their ICO. That will happen around 45, 50 minutes into the show. So usual show, and then we get into that interesting conversation. Today, I've got Legendary and Brett in the co-host seats with me. We're ready to get into it. But just a reminder, friends, before we do, nothing that we say here is financial advice. The market is very, very risky. We do not know anything for sure. Please do proceed with caution and exercise your own judgment at all times. With that out of the way, Brett, it is Wednesday. It's the 7th of January today. How are you doing? How are you feeling?
Hey, buddies. Good morning. Things are good. You know, we're cooking. The New Year's back. Everyone's got new energy. My replies are going crazy. When I say replies, I'm talking about like my business replies, like not literally like my replies on Twitter. I'm sure that's what everyone thinks. I'm thinking like I've been sending a lot of messages the last, I don't know, 2 weeks as I've been working, trying to get things moving. A lot of people, normal humans, taking time off, finally getting back to me. So I'm flooded with inbound things to do, things to address. It's fun. Progress is being made. Exciting time.
Did you say that you are in demand at the moment, Brett?
Yes. Yeah, I think that's fair to say. But to be honest, like, no, actually, I wouldn't say we're in demand so much as just like
more in demand.
I mean, I can take more demand. Yeah, sure. Let's do
You got
it.
capacity.
Like,
You got capacity for some demand.
I'm just saying, like, I'm no one special. I'm just a bread guy, right? And like these people are just coming back and they're just doing their work, and I've laid the seeds. So I'm maybe top their inbox, their DM list, whatever it is. And people are getting back and they're doing the work. So it's just people are waking up more so than I am in demand. How about that?
Okay,
I don't want to be
demand
some
is a
like
function of people waking up. I understand.
yeah, sure.
People are now awake,
Yeah.
whereas previously they were not. That generates demand. It makes sense. It is the 7th of January by now. If you haven't really got back to work by now, when are you going to get back to work, Legendary? When did you start? When did you say you really switched back on? Or have you really clicked into gear? I saw you were doing some hyperbolic chamber, hyperbaric chamber. Okay, you can't really do any serious work in a hyperbaric chamber, can you?
You can actually take, it depends. So typically in most hyperbaric oxygen therapy chambers, you can't bring a laptop or a phone. And there is a few where you can. It's typically the ones where the air or the oxygen isn't like saturated 100%, but you wear an oxygen mask instead. Because otherwise, obviously, like the smallest spark from your phone or laptop would blow the whole thing up and you would instantly
Cool.
kill yourself in there. So if you have one where you wear a mask, and obviously there's a couple other safety guardrails in there, you can bring a phone. And it is, because you asked me, it's a serious consideration. So basically the idea behind that is, right, you do this therapy, but you have to do it like 60 times for 90 minutes each. And you have to do it basically at least 5 times, 4 to 5 times a week, if you want to have like the maximum effect, which then is that you basically have the telomeres, which are these like protective caps on your chromosomes. And once they deteriorate as you age, they are the reason for like a ton of age-related diseases, but also like the formation of new blood vessels, all the positive effects that you want to have from HBOT therapy. They only come if you do that 40 to 60 times. The most significant study, which has been quoted over and over, says 60 times, and you have to do that in a somewhat very, very strict schedule. So basically, I would give up like half of my morning for the next couple of months in the foreseeable future if I want to do that. And this was a consideration where I can where can I do that, where I can bring at least like my phone, laptop, iPad, or something where I can get some work done.
We gonna turn this into a peppy conversation? I know you forwarded me some information on that. No.
We're not doing it. We're not doing it. We're not talking about peptides and coding on Claude for the rest of the year. And we're not going to do it.
All right. Legendary and I will have a sidebar on the topics that everyone is talking about. Yeah.
We are. I mean, maybe we're gonna have to do a segment on it at some point. We will have to touch on it. However, we're not doing it today because we've got a lot of stuff to get into. We've also got the interview to get into with Kain, which I'm looking forward to. But this is the benefit of going every day. We're always going to have some time to get into those alternative questions. If we're going hyperbaric chambers today, then it will be a different chamber tomorrow.
Can we, because you said, you mentioned interviews. Last question on that topic. Can we also bring non-crypto people to the interviews? Like, can we bring some neuroscientists, peptide longevity experts, and kind of widen that
Brian Johnson
conversation as
aim
well?
higher, buddy.
I think
Brian Johnson did reply to my posts twice already, and to a DM that I sent him. So
we've got capacity. Just as Brad said, Brad's got capacity. He's got some DMs, not enough DMs. We've got capacity. We were planning on doing 3 to 4 interviews a week. That's not 5. There's 5 days a week. We're here 5 days a week. So I'm open to it.
Did NFTs. So, there is a crypto related thing to talk about.
Bring me Brian Johnson and we'll do it. Let's go for it. Right. Let's get into the show though. We've got a lot of interesting stuff to talk about. As always, starting with the price action to get you up to speed with everything that you need to know. We've got Bitcoin down a couple of percent to $92,000. That's terrible after I bought at 92.5 yesterday. What a disaster. ETH is flat at 3.2K. XRP is down 6% to $2.20. BNB is at $908. Sol is down 1% to 137. What else do we have here? Hyperliquid is, where are we? Gosh, I have to actually scroll down now to find Hyperliquid. That is not good. It's flat at $27. Sui is down 4% to $1.90. Getting into the meme coin side of things, we've got Doge down 1% to 14 cents. Got Pepe down 2% as well. Things, a little bit red today compared to previous days, given the humongous moves up in the last week or so. Bonk is down 3%, Pengu's down 4%, SPX is down 5%. A lot of these tokens up still 30, 40, 50% on the week. Fartcoin is down a couple of percent. Also, I think that broadly summarizes the position there. Rect is actually up a couple of percent still, despite being up. It's also up 38% on the week too. So that is that. Getting into the headlines, which we're going to be discussing today, Legendary will take us through the S&P being at another all-time high, as Bitcoin has just dipped a little from yesterday, whipsawing around a little bit at 94 to 91. Did that once yesterday before slightly recovering. Wouldn't read too much into these tiny moves. MSCI decides not to exclude DATs like MicroStrategy from indexes. There was rumors that they were not going to be allowed on. So I think that is actually reasonable news. I know it's not saying that they're going to definitively be included, but they're deciding not to exclude that. So Hyperliquid shares map of Hyperliquid developments and achievements sparking airdrop rumors. Brad will just touch on some of the Hyperliquid numbers there as we consider the Hyperliquid position. Some other things happening. This was interesting. Tether Gold announces Scudo, a new way to measure gold on chain, with one Scudo being worth 1/1000th of a gold ounce. I wouldn't mind collecting some Scudos myself. Sounds pretty fun, actually. Ranger ICO goes live with 100% liquidity at TG and a $6 million minimum raise. I think a lot of money has flowed into that already. I don't know the exact number just yet. Maybe we could find that out. Someone in the comments knows. That'd be amazing. Keep an eye out in the comments, please. And shout out the right answer. I think it's been flooding in. These MetaDAO raises have done pretty well. Coinbase adds Mega ETH to its roadmap. Maybe we'll get a little update from that on Bread in a second. Kinetic announces Markets by Kinetic will launch on Monday, January the 12th. So not long to wait for that. Telegram reveals it sold more than $450 million of its Toncoin last year. That was revealed, I think, in a Financial Times article yesterday. Tempo announces TIP20, Tempo's native token standard. And a couple other bits from around the space. Virtuals announces 3 paths for launches. Pegasus, Unicorn, and Titan for teams at different stages of development rather than just trying to pigeonhole everyone into the same type of launch. Rec Drinks announces, I think it's pretty huge, announces WorldStar collaboration with cherry cola flavor. WorldStar's a humongous account in the hip hop universe. That's pretty big. And finally, Nike announces it is sold Artifact, one of our favorite old school NFT brands that kind of digital footwear, but then also real footwear and also kind of street vibe, streetwear kind of brand has been sold. No details on who the buyer, but the NFTs did pump, I think, 100% on the news. I don't know why you'd be speculating on Artifact on that news, but some people are. So it's good to know that. That is the roundup to get you up to with everything that you need to know. Before we get into the main stuff today, Legendary, coming to you here to pick out something of note, and then coming to Bread to do the same.
Your Clonex 100% a way too conservative. Clonex is up 250% on the day. They really like the news, and they're back at 0.33 ETH, a third of an ETH for one Clonex. So probably the thinking is that any owner is better than Nike, who is not doing anything with that. And there is some excitement around that. The other thing I wanted to touch on, unsurprisingly, once again, is the Tether news, is the
Scudo.
The Scudo.
That's a cool name.
Yeah, and
Scudo.
Paolo, the Tether CEO, had this to say on that.
Is this
Scudo
Italian?
Sounds Italian.
Sounds Italian.
Sounds
I'd like myself some Italian gold.
Scudo. Dictionary: a coin typically made of silver, formerly used in various Italian states. Well, the silver history isn't a good one for this thing then, but at least it's a coin. So
how does that make any sense?
It doesn't. Paul is saying Scudo is a mean of accounting for 1,000th of an ounce. Improves user experience. For this token ticker is still impossible to pronounce. Like, how do you guys say
XAUT?
XAUT for transfers, payments, and pricing. All upcoming Tether WDK based wallets will integrate Scudo denomination similarly to Sats for Bitcoin.
Yeah, I guess that they're trying to make it feel, as gold gets more expensive and you can't hold one unit being 1 ounce, they want to make it feel better. It's obviously kind of hard to collect Bitcoin now as well, given that you buy, I mean, at one point in time, you could buy almost 10 grand, right? And you could buy 10 grand and you're not even getting 0.1. So I guess they're trying to just do some numerical bias here and let people feel better about their purchases as everything gets more expensive. I like it. I kind of like it. Bread, what about you? What's going on? Any thought on a Scudo? Is something you want to collect a few Scudos, or is there anything else going on in the market that is taking your interest?
Yeah, I put a couple things in chat that I was tracking from that. Scudo was the one at the top, and I just did Scudo is SAT ? Turns out Scudo is SAT. Or same like mental game. I think we all understand that game pretty well in this industry. I'll say so we discussed already. I would take some, yes, but I would prefer to aspire to grab full ounces. The thing that I wanted to call out though, we have the Ranger ICO. The thing that's notable on that was not in the actual headline, but the thing that I think is interesting is that's the first actual Borg implementation, which if you guys are familiar with Lex is the crypto lawyer that you guys may recognize from like the lime green head, like the smiley face he wears as a PFP for a lot of time. But anyways, the Borg, which just means it's like a fully on-chain legal entity. Like he's been pushing this structure for a long time, and he was excited to say that this is the first full implementation of that. So it's like the guy's he's Ethereum aligned cypherpunk lawyer, and yeah, so it's just like a step in the direction of putting everything fully on chain. That's ownership, that's the legal entity, that's all this shit. And he's built out this specific I don't know what you would call it, like a program to allow people to do this. And Ranger, he said, was the first people to do that. So that was exciting to see. And then on the TG stuff, yeah, like you just said, the numbers, like as it was, like that's 10% of the supply. That's insane. So like Telegram, just like they just come out and they're like, oh yeah, we sold 10% of our supply over the last year to the ecosystem, which is an insane amount to be selling. So like you look at the actual ton chart, it explains a lot. And it's, I don't know, like something just feels kind of gross about it, frankly, that they were able to like unload that much while also shilling it. I don't know, it just doesn't feel right.
they didn't necessarily just explain how it was done, right? That's not necessarily them selling direct. I believe a lot of times these foundations, the way they do it is they reach out for OTC buyers.
You would hope so.
And then, but the deals are honestly, they're just horrendous. Like, they're very, very risky for the buyer, frankly, because you don't know how many, who else they've sold to and under what terms. So say, for example, you get told, I don't know, so let's look at this. Ton was trading in May of 25 at $4. I can just see that thing. And someone says, okay, why don't you buy some from us at 3?
70% discount.
Yeah, no,
Even.
not 70% discount. You're not gonna, you never get 70. Maybe you get a, would they do 50%?
I'm being hyperbolic to just show that you would still get got.
Yeah, like you'll still get got eventually. But the reason why on the way down, this is actually not the way to look at it, because it's often when the prices are going up that they look to sell. And this is not just one foundation. Maybe this is just a variety of strategies that people do. On the way up, people sell, and then they're looking to give you like a 40% discount. But you're like, hang on a sec, the price was only there like 1 week ago, and it's just pumped now. And I'm going to have to hold this for like a month or 2 months or something. And I'm pretty sure when I evaluated all of the OTC deals we were offered, because to be clear, we've never been in the OTC business. And my decision in the end was, this is not our business. I don't know how to do this very well. Maybe there's a deal here to be done, but I don't really get it. And I think it's pretty dangerous. And I don't think it's worth doing. But when I evaluated it, we would have lost on every single one because of the way they're designed. So I'm entirely with you. There's something very like, it's not great about it, but maybe you were speaking about it even more from like the team perspective, to be unloading that much of your own stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, I guess maybe it's a little bit of the juxtaposition between like the communication that these people have, because I have no doubt in my mind that was a proud statement that he had in that investor meeting, right? These are people that probably hold equity in some form. And they're like, he's coming to the table. And he's like, look, guys, we're able to offload $500 million of this shit into this ecosystem. Hooray us, right? Go guys, us, cool people. And then anyone on the outside, namely us, who sees that goes, what the fuck, dude? Like, not cool, right? We're trying to like build an industry that like these things are actually valuable. So it's like, for me, maybe it's just like an extension of the equity versus token discussion, and like how these people can probably proclaim this stuff. And maybe that's not even their intention, but the way that reads, that's how I interpret that. And yeah, it's just not awesome, especially because like I'm actually a little bit excited about like the Telegram integration with blockchain. I was actually trying to do a deal with someone recently to try to buy the bread handle. Talking to this guy, he's giving me some tips and tricks. Like, Telegram's a cool thing. Like, there's actually something there.
Yeah, there really is. Given that so many of us are there, right?
Yeah, yeah. But like, it's just unfortunate, I guess.
And there's even an additional layer in Telegram's case. You don't only have the token holders, the equity owners, but you also have Telegram bonds, and very notably, $500 million worth of Telegram bonds have been seized, Russian assets that have been seized as part of Europe's ongoing sanctions against Russia as part of the war. And Telegram CEO, there was a long article on that yesterday in the Financial Times, did say that they will honor the debt at maturity. Even if the assets are frozen, they will pay for that. So they do need 500 mil to pay for that plus interest. And they did not have that money at the last unaudited half-yearly disclosure. They were sitting, like, I think, only on 120, 130, something like that, 100 something mil on cash. And now, according to the Financial Times, they're sitting on 900 something mil on cash. So now they would be good to pay for that, and they still have some cash left after that. So it's pretty complex, because you don't only have now token and equity owners, you also have corporate bonds that you're issuing as a company. So it's getting very, very interesting to align all of these incentives, if not impossible.
One quick call out, shout out to Cap in the comments on Twitter. This is super helpful. Someone from Telegram replied to the general statement saying that all tons sold by Telegram has 4-year vesting. So look, you know, when I'm talking about these other types of deals that were getting offered around at the end of the bull market, they were clearly more opportunistic, not great ones. Whereas it sounds like they've found a very long-term oriented buyer, which I actually think is not bad then, to that degree. Like, you're supposed to be able to sell your tokens, ideally to people who are going to value them. And the by far largest buyer of Telegram's Ton was Ton Strat, which it's a permanent capital vehicle whose main purpose is to accumulate Ton. So I think in essence, there's other details. We don't need to go into all of them, but in essence, it was bought by the equivalent of a treasury company. So shout out to Cap for bringing that context to us. Super helpful to note. Any final thoughts on that, boys, before we get into it?
No, I appreciate the extra context from both Cap and Legendary. That is like, it's super interesting now. And like I said, I think technically like Ton is just like a dog shit blockchain, but it has a lot of like interesting potential as a distribution vehicle. So it's like, I'm very interested in seeing this thing be successful. And even talking to these people, like whenever I was trying to barter the deal for bread, like it would go through the official, I think it's Fragment is what it's called, which is like the thing for buying and selling handles. So like there's like the use cases there, but even those guys were like, man, I love Telegram, but holy shit, they're messing this up. And like, it's just not going well. And then we talk about like the gifts and stuff that they have inside of the actual application. All of that stuff also denominated in Ton. Like it's, I don't know, man, like I will continue to watch it. Maybe frustratingly.
Done there, yeah. Like people really like the stickers. People like the gifts. Yeah. Definitely something to keep an eye on. Good stuff. Right. Let's get into it. As a reminder, we've got 3 interesting headlines today. We're going to be talking S&P all-time high, general asset roundup from Legendary. We talk about MSCI saying DATs will not be excluded from indexes. I'll touch on that. And Brad will touch on Hyperliquid before we get into our conversation with Kain from Infinex towards the end of today's show. Looking forward to find out about their ICO a little bit later today. So Legendary, take us through the majors. What do we need to know? S&P all-time high. Keeps going, doesn't it?
Indeed, it does. You said the important thing. S&P is up on the day, on the week. We are up another 0.6% on the day. It did hit 6,944 points, smashed through a new all-time high. Crypto did correct, however, as you said, we are back to 92K for Bitcoin, while stocks have been going up. Taking a quick look at the pre-market. Pre-market is pretty flat on the day. S&P is down 7 bips for the S&P 500 futures, that is. So we will have to wait and see what the market will do after it opens today. Once again, looking at Finviz to get a bit more of a sense of what is going on, who are the winners of the day. And today or yesterday, clearly the big sector that has been going up is healthcare. I'm not going to go back into talking about peptides, but healthcare is the sector which saw a very fair amount of growth yesterday, notably with Lilly being up 2%. However, I did want to take a look at a company that we did not really talk about on the show. I can't recall us mentioning it a single time, but it has actually been the big winner of last year, and it is SanDisk, the flash drive producer. SanDisk is up 28% on the day. And not only is it up 28% on the day, it is up. So basically, SanDisk was part of Western Digital. Western Digital also a hardware manufacturer. It was spun out of that, became its own stock-listed, publicly traded company. And that happened in February 2025, so like 11 months ago. And it's up 871%. So solid 9x if you bought the SanDisk spin-off or spin-out. And once again, this is tied to the massive boom in the AI industry. AI inferencing is causing a massive demand for solid-state drives for SSD. And NVIDIA, that's the reason why the stock is up today so much, did introduce a new inferencing platform last night at the CES. And SanDisk is the big winner of last year and is also the big winner of the day. There we go. Beautiful.
So thank you for that. I mean, the chart is insane. That's pretty interesting to note. I feel like we're getting, if we weren't at the point already, I know Brad joked on Monday, it's like, we're really going on a tangent after being NFT, JPEG collectors, and then crypto participants going off into uranium and defense tech and all of these other
This
things.
is at least not doomer. Like that's a defense tech, uranium, and all of this. That's all doomer talk. This is at least like, oh, sure, we're storing stuff. This is cool.
Yeah, but so you know, and as part of the AI trade, it feels like we're very, very late to these things in general at the moment because we're like learning the stuff. I actually think I'm reasonably okay on the defense tech stuff. I shared the company I was looking at yesterday. But I think we're super late to this stuff. And I've just noticed the conversations we have where it's like, oh, Google's actually going to be as good as Nvidia because they are producing, you know, their own chips in this particular way. And that will always be, that was basically the top of Google, I think, when we started talking about it, when like search past 300. I get the sense that we're like a touch too late on the AI stuff. Ledger, I don't know if you have a reflection there. What are you thinking when it comes to even our analysis of some of these assets? How do we get speedier? Because you did say, you know, the SanDisk, is it SanDisk? So the SanDisk trade, it's AI related, but it was more like a spin-off. It's like related to the AI trade rather than being core AI, I think. So how do we get better at that?
I don't think that we are late to the AI trade per se. I think that there is companies, I don't know, if I look at the Alphabet chart, I don't know if I want to buy Alphabet here, but there's definitely things that took a bit longer for the increase in demand. Like we have been using LLMs way before the demand for memory sticks for RAM did increase. So I do think that there's like always second order infrastructure effects that will come into play and will help with some opportunities. Now, do I want to buy SanDisk on a day where it's up 30% after it's been up 900% over the last year? Probably not. Do I think that we are late to the AI trade per se? I also don't think that this is the case. And I see Brett is chuckling and is eager to come back with a reply. So Brett, go ahead.
I'm laughing at B-Check to like imply that like the AI thing is over. Bro, like it's the same thing as crypto. Like you like you have to understand the underlying tech and then the magnitude of its impact to then go like, oh my God, like crypto is done. Like, bro, no, man, like we're starting to get integrated into the literal like infrastructure of the global economy. Like the stuff will go up. It's just that you have to pick your spots. So is it running hot on some of the majors? Yes, the dumb spots are probably a little hot. You're probably gonna get burned on some stuff if you just ape into the buy tops like we all have with crypto stuff. But the long-term trajectory and the humanitarian impact of this shit, like, bro, like the stuff that we like, even just using us as an example, right? Giving people a glimpse into what we talk about after the show. We're like, guys, we want to scale this stuff. What can we continue to offload from the work that we do in this business to like hyperscale ourselves, right? And like finding the soft spots in what we do. And until that process is literally a prompt, which it will be at some point, until that process is literally just us prompting something and having it created, there is going to be so much iteration and so much growth. And I actually just saw a nice little study that's talking about what was like previously perceived as a plateau in a lot of these models is turning into like this generalization realization moment where it's like usually they sit there and they iterate and the progress that a particular model has on a problem over the course of it's like 10,000 cycles where it's just certain it spins. And if you look at the actual progress, it is like plateaued. It does not move. It does not budge for about 10,000 cycles. And typically teams are giving up at 100, 200,000, whatever, saying it's a waste of resources to continue to put this thing in this direction because it does not work. After a certain point, it then just like all of a sudden, boom, like generalizes a problem. And that's because over that time, it's actually refining itself for the duration. So that's just to say that like still discovering stuff and we're having these moments of breakthroughs that will just like continue to happen. And there's so much energy into it. It will just like this shit is going to continue to go. So I would say it's very similar to our industry where our job, if we want to get better at this stuff, is to understand the intricacies of it the same way that we have the intricacies understood in crypto. We're like, sure, like, yeah, you buy Bitcoin whenever Bitcoin is like, feels like global macro is pushing in its favor. And that's like a long-term trade. But if you want to go and you actually win the same way that we think we win whenever we go and we dive into Hyperliquid early because we understand the industry and we see where things are going and you can predict the puck, there are always going to be opportunities. And that is our job, is to like, yeah, sure, Google, maybe, like, it's probably hot. That's the dumb money thing that everyone buys because their interface is the LLM. It's Gemini. So they go Gemini good, Claude okay, and they buy Google. We wouldn't be able to go to second and third order effects and say, well, Gemini leverages this, which goes to this, and the trend is going here. So we need to buy SanDisk, which, by the way, that ticker is mid. They should have done SANDD. Like, that's probably a good way to capitalize on it. So official score of the SanDisk ticker, because looking at that, it looks like, I don't know, maybe Sandick. They needed the S in there some way. It should have been something creative, and they should have capitalized on sand, because sand is the big thing. Final score 2.5 out of 5.
I think it's the perfect day for you to try to go at the SanDisk holders, because you
can't unsee Dick now, right?
Well, A, okay, fine, you can't unsee it, but B, they're on cloud nine. You can go for them at the moment. You can give their ticker a bad score, and they're just not going to mind today because they're the ones up 800% on the year. You know,
it's true.
So I think it's nice. That's a perfect example of punching up, Brad. Perfect punch up, rather than
they'll take it,
kicking a ticker when it's down. You know. Okay, so look. But to your more serious points, actually, I completely agree. And the one thing I was thinking all the time you were talking was just be patient. Like, I've been preaching patience for ages now. When we kind of got bearish and like, oh, should you buy some more? Should you get back in? Just like, I don't know, just be patient in general. I think I'm learning that way more. And especially, and I'm learning that in the market that I know, which is crypto, NFTs, and understanding how all of these things link together. In a market that you don't know, fine, take a little bit and put it in to get a taste, and then maybe that helps you start to learn more. I know some very prominent investors use that strategy. It's like, look, I think this is the thing that I need to be in. I'm going to buy and then learn after, because I don't want to miss it if I am right. So maybe that's okay, but I think until you fully understand the stuff, it's very, very hard to trade and invest successfully. So I'm completely with you. And I think taking the time to learn it is also fine. It's just always opportunities. I feel far less FOMO than I've felt before in the past. Maybe that's because we've done well so far, and then you can kind of manage the FOMO now, and you kind of realize after you've actually done it a number of years, okay, there are actually just things that happen every year where it just gives you a chance. Like, there's 6 things a year. If you catch even 2 of them properly, that does great. And then you've got your standard things going on, and then you've got the business stuff going on. I think there's ways to deal with this in a very manageable way, basically. Curious if you had any reflection on what Brett said and what I said, and then we'll move on to the next one.
Yeah, Brett put very eloquently where I was going at. I just want to give a shout out to Funky in the YouTube comments. Funky said, this happened before in the early 2000s with digital cameras. SanDisk prices went bonkers when there was a short of memory cards for the cameras at one point, or short supply. And Funky also thinks that we're not late on AI. It will be the play of the decade.
There you go. Don't disagree at all. Look, we've got around 10 minutes left before we get Kain from Infinex on the show to have that conversation. So let's hit the next headline. I think we're going to let's do strategy, surging 6% on the MSCI decision not to exclude that from indexes. So what you need to know here, I'm not going to spend too long on this one because I want to hear more from Brett on Hyperliquid. Strategy shares rose 6% in after-hours trading after MSCI's decision on digital asset treasury companies. MSCI stated that distinguishing between investment companies and those holding digital assets requires further research, and the current index treatment for companies with digital assets making up 50% or more of their total assets will remain unchanged. So they went on to say, for instance, assessing index eligibility across a range of these types of entities may require additional inclusion assessment criteria, such as financial statement based or other indicators. They're just not trying to decide, like, is this company a real company? Is it like just some other type of company that is not what would normally go in this type of index? And they basically come out saying, not saying that it's going to stay in. They said for the time being, and this this is helpful because sometimes the headlines can push you in a different direction. It said, for the time being, the current index treatment of DAT companies identified in the preliminary list published by MSCI of companies whose digital asset holdings represent 50% or more of their total assets will remain unchanged. I don't think that means necessarily that they are unequivocally saying that they will not change in the future. They're clearly saying for the time being, and the market's kind of reacted as if they've said, no worries, this is just going to be completely fine. So I guess the market's reacting like this because with that negative news now lifted, capital might start to flow back into some of those treasury companies, potentially boosting market sentiment. Obviously, big ones to look on the ETH side would be Bitmine, SharpLink, 21 Capital on the Bitcoin side. All of them were up after that news. So that's the quick news there on the DAT stuff. Does anyone have any commentary there? Brad, looks like you wanted to say something before we move on.
I don't know, for like, maybe this is dumb. The big notable thing for me was the fact that MSTR was directly called like a DAT or referenced as a DAT, which is for maybe there's just like a misconception on my side. Like I assumed there was some level of registration process to like be formally recognized as a DAT, because like we see all these things coming out, they're announcing they're creating a DAT for whatever. And I think we all understood that MSTR was like basically a DAT, but the fact that like everyone is celebrating MSTR on a DAT related thing when I thought it was applying to a separate sector was notable to me. So maybe that's just a misunderstanding on my side, but I just like, I felt like there was a formal thing that made something a DAT other than just like, hey guys, we're a DAT.
Yeah, fair enough. One point from Funky got his hand raised, always very knowledgeable on MSTR and Bitcoin. Funky, welcome to the stage, man. What's your take here?
Just super quick, the thing I dropped in the comments, that one thing that people need to realize is though they remove the risk of forced selling, they also changed the index to where there's no more forced buying, because any of the indices that tracked that, if they had to, you've issued new shares, then that forced indexes to go and buy more of those shares. And so it was creating some additional demand. That has now been removed. And so there won't be that additional buy pressure. So the sell pressure is gone, but so is the buy pressure. And that's, I think, something that's noteworthy.
Interesting. Very interesting context. Appreciate you for providing that. As always, Funk, good stuff. Right. Brad, let's get into your headline here. Some artistic news produced by Hyperliquid with some very interesting community interpretations. Tell us what we actually need to know here. What is real? What is not real? What is the meaningful news to take away from the latest Hyperliquid announcement?
Yeah, I'm just going to preface all of it with that literally none of it is real because it's all speculation based on a picture. Okay, so now that that's out of the way, the headline itself is based around Hyperliquid worked with a artist local to the ecosystem, Alfie, who's someone I've talked to. He does some really great work. To create a custom image that showcases the growth and progress of the ecosystem. So if you're not watching the show, you could see that it's like it came from the Hyperliquid account. They say they're proud of the last year. They talk about some of their milestones that they hit, some of the developments and their growth and progress of a few key metrics. And the image itself just highlights a lot of those things. So you'll see pictures of hypers all over the place. You see big integrations like MetaMask, Rabby, Phantom. You see a lot of the local apps in the ecosystem. So you're going to have things like PvP trade. I see there's a little skull in there. You're going to have a cross, which is a bridge over there. You're going to have, I think there's USDC in here. There's also a few others. Native markets has representation. So like it's a nice picture of a bunch of stuff all over the place, meant to be culturally relevant. It's nice. It's cute. People enjoyed being called out, whether you're an NFT collection or a project building. So it's just good recognition for the ecosystem. People are very excited for that. The one notable thing that everyone seemed to focus on is in the top of the panel, there is 2 airplanes. One is already taken off and is flying above a little golden hyper. And then there is a second one that is yet to be taken off. And everyone is looking at this and going, holy shit, we're getting an airdrop, brothers, because there's 2 airplanes. So the question then becomes, one, was this like, were all of these things mandated by the team? And where they come in and they say, hey, Alfie, make sure you put 2 airplanes in there, because I don't know if you know this, we did an airdrop and we got another one coming, brother. And if he did that, or if he just like had free artistic ability, did a bunch of stuff because he's embedded in the ecosystem, and that the team is just, because they're a small team, apparently 10, 11 people, they're just like, bro, sick picture, we're going to tweet it. So now that is the speculation between the ecosystem and everyone else, is like, was this a mandated thing by the team to showcase the actual roadmap coming, or was this just artistic expression of the actual builder and saying, hey man, this stuff is cool. We're all been talking about a second airdrop for literally a year now, so I'm just going to draw 2 airplanes. I'm more of an Occam's razor type of person, and the likeliest outcome is obviously, or honestly, the simplest. So that's what it's going to be. He's like, dude just wanted to draw 2 planes because literally everyone's been talking about 2 planes for as long as I can remember.
Also, it's an island. You need travel on an island, right? Like you can't just, how are you going to get to the island on a map? You probably need some transport. I just want to read the tweet itself, because look, although we obviously always report the news in a relatively serious manner, sometimes there's just fun stuff. This was Farmrick at Farmrick, who's quite a prominent writer on Hyperliquid, invest in the ecosystem. This is the type of gymnastics being done to will an airdrop into existence. Let's put it like that. This image is as close to confirmation from the Hyperliquid team as we're getting of an upcoming airdrop. There is a Hyper NFT. So there's this cat juggling coins under the plane. This is what you failed to mention, Brad, which is clearly the crucial determining factor. The Hyper is wearing Chinese New Year attire. Chinese New Year starts on February the 17th. And that means that's the anniversary of Hyper EVM. So I think that is what you have failed to recognize in your
stars have aligned
airdrop analysis.
Yeah. And what people don't know is it's actually Jeff's brother's dog's birthday as well. And if you really understand that and are deep in the trenches, you know he's building his airdrop for his $40 billion protocol around that date.
Exactly. So look, I think there will be another airdrop at some point, but I don't know if this is, I think the industry just loves looking at these maps and reading stuff into it. But appreciate the analysis, Brad. Ledge, any final takes here before we move into the interview today?
Nothing of substance to add on this one.
Okay. So look, that was good stuff. Brad, thanks for joining us. We're going to move into our interview for the day now. As we mentioned at the top of the show, we're delighted to have Kain, founder of Infinex, founder of Synthetics, the OG Perps exchange, partner at Bodhi Ventures, with us today. Main focus now is building Infinex, the crypto super app where you can trade any on-chain assets on any chain, including Perps powered by Hyperliquid, without emails, passwords, or login links, as it's secured by passkeys. Kain, welcome to the show. Great to have you with us. Second time on the show for you today. Last time I checked, it was in June 2025. How have things been since then? How's it going? Kain, you're currently on mute. If you just press there you go. We got you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's almost midnight here. This is my second midnight podcast in a row, so I'm pretty cooked. But yeah, it's been good. June feels like June 2025 feels like a decade ago. So
it definitely feels like that. One quick take from you before we get into the product, before we get into the raise and all this stuff. It does feel like a decade ago. So much has happened in the market. What's your perspective on the market and thinking through how things have developed since then?
I mean, it was, if the market has turned, right, and I think there's still some debate about whether or not it has. If the market has turned, it was definitely the worst bull market ever, unequivocally. Like, I think there's no getting around that. So my expectation is that we're close to the end of the bull market, but plus or minus 3 months maybe, or maybe we take all the Venezuelan oil and put it into BTC and we're up only. I don't know. Anything can happen.
You know the reason for the capture, Kain, was all of the Bitcoin, the Venezuelan Bitcoin. They've got.
Oh yes, yeah. Exactly.
That was actually. It's not actually about oil. that one.
Yeah.
But look, that's maybe for a topic for another day. Just so everyone knows how we're going to have this conversation today, we've got some interesting stuff to talk about. We're going to be focusing on the Infinex product and how the funds from, because this is the second raise you guys are doing. You did the initial one, $67 million NFT raise has been invested, and we want to find out how that's been invested, how that's been deployed. The new raise of 99 at a $99 million FDV, and some of the challenges that you faced and what Infinex hopes to achieve. So those are the three things we'll go through. I'm going to pass over to Legendary first to get into the product, I think, just to get people understanding what we're talking about here, and then we'll continue after that. Ledge.
Yeah, absolutely. A quick primer on Infinex first. Crypto super app, you mentioned it before. You can trade any on-chain asset on any chain, including perps by Hyperliquid. No emails, no passwords, no login links, all secured by passkeys. And you also mentioned the figure, 67 mil that have been raised by the NFT patron sale. And you can, in a recent post, said that your current burn is roughly 1.1 million per month. You have around 30 months of runway with 60 team members. So I would like for you to talk us through how that money has been invested on the one hand, and on the other hand, since I'm sharing the screen, what we are seeing on screen when it comes to Infinex as the product.
Okay, which one do you want to start with, product or
the? Let's start with the funds first.
Sure. So I think the first thing to call out, and I can understand why this has kind of gone the way that it has. I've always had a view that like public sales, ICOs were the optimal way to kind of get people engaged with a product, and that people want to own tokens. They want to own tokens and things that they use, and that that alignment is really important. The purpose of the Sonar sale was not a fundraise, right? And so there's a lot of people who are like, oh, it's a down round, it's this. That wasn't the goal. At the end of the day, perception is reality, and that's kind of how people are perceiving it now. So I think that was a kind of positioning mistake for us. And realistically, I think it's been a net negative for us to do a sale prior to TGE. Really no one's been happy with it. Our existing patron holders who went into the patron NFT sale, there's a few that are happy. They're like, oh, I can double down. I didn't go as big into the patron sale as I would have liked. But there's like 5 people who are happy about this situation, right? So it wasn't really ever about like raising more funds. Although obviously we have a high burn, and so having more capital is better than not. But the purpose of it wasn't to raise capital. If we wanted to go out and raise 5 mil, it would have been much easier to go and raise that privately, and do something very different. But again, I had a view. That a token sale prior to TG is a good decision. I think the mistake that we made was probably not anticipating. And there's good reasons for this, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. Not anticipating how much kind of frustration there has been with token launches over the last 12-18 months, and the kind of almost complete rejection of a lockup, the idea of like being locked up. The interesting thing is, in the patron sale, we expected everyone to choose no locks, but everyone chose locks. Everyone chose a 3-year lock, like 85% of people, right? So I think we were overfitting a little bit to, this is 2024, right? It was September 2024, a long time ago, in the middle of the bull market, prior to a lot of things that, 1010, meme coin extraction, et cetera, right? And we, I think, overcorrected for that. We're like, oh, people like lockups. They want, a discounted price with the lockup. And then the timeline is like, you fucking monsters. Like, how dare you try and lock us up, right? And then, we made it overly complex by saying, well, it's not a real lock. It's like kind of a lock, but you can get out, et cetera. We should have just made it very straightforward. And in hindsight, I think the simplest thing would have been to do a token sale unlocked, fully unlocked, and just avoid all of this confusion and FUD. So it was done for the right reasons, but poorly executed. The comms have been poorly executed. The strategy has been poorly executed, and we're now in a position where we've lost a little bit of momentum going into TGE. But at the end of the day, I still I feel like we have done a very good job over the last 12 months in building what we've built. And so the people who have seen, and this was my favorite part of all of this stuff over the last week, right? I'm sure you guys saw it on the timeline, is you have these people that are like, Kain is the worst scammer, grifter who's ever come into the space, but it's a good product. I love the product. And it's like, I don't know how you square those two things. Like how anyway. So look, like I had a thread today where I said, a lot of mistakes were made, and most of them were made by me. And I accept the reasons why people are frustrated, and there's a lot of them. But there's kind of no denying we built a good product, and that's the main point of what we're trying to do.
Indeed. So one of the questions I was going to ask about the raise, and we will get to the product backwards, because I think that's one of the things that you'd like to get onto as well. But you mentioned some of the conversations you've been having on the timeline. You issued an apology today, or like a recognition today, the people who maybe got caught up in that battle that you had with bots when you were running the InfoFi campaign. And I wondered do you think that's what contributed? Because as you said, frankly, it's been quite personal, I think, sometimes.
Yeah.
And I wondered if you thought was it the bot thing that contributed to this?
That was
something else?
I think that was the initial impetus for it, right? I think up to then, everyone was like, to be totally honest, I would say that probably 80% of the timeline didn't know who I was from like OG DeFi, right? There were a lot of Solana people, there were a lot of, token traders, perp traders or whatever who'd come into the space in 2021, 22, 23 or whatever, who were using Infinex. And, I was at best like some washed DeFi guy, right? But they didn't hate me. They were just like, he's a guy, whatever. I don't really care, right? The people I would say, the OGs who don't like me are the ones who didn't buy the Haven token or didn't buy SNX pre-DeFi summer. They bought it post-DeFi summer. And, fair enough, right? A lot of DeFi tokens have been down only for 4 years since 2021. So, I get that. But the InfoFi campaign shifted that. And, the most interesting thing for me is like I woke up and legitimately the first tweet that I saw was from Tom, who works at Synthetics. And in the middle of this tweet, he was like, I've got friends who were impacted by this. And there was a part of my brain that was like, fuck you. Like, no, you don't. Right. Like, and then I was like, actually, like, stop for a second, like zoom out for a second and really like think from first principles here. This is a person that you know and trust who's saying, I have friends who are real people. They're not running a bot farm, who are pissed off about this because they feel like they got rugged. And as soon as that kind of clicked for me, I was like, yeah, okay, I get it. Like, and I think I say in the thread, right? Like, if I were grinding the trenches and some rich plutocrat, came and stole my money, I'd be pissed off too, right? Like fair, right? Like, I get it. And so it somewhere amongst all of this, as we were saying, we're trying to get real users. We don't want these bots to come in and take all the money. And this is, we're not the first people to have this issue with a airdrop farming campaign or something, right? Where people come in and either bots snipe things or, there's Sybils or whatever. We're not the first ones, but I think we were very aggressive about it. And I was very unapologetically saying, listen, like, we're going to crack some eggs. Some people are probably going to miss out, but, it's better for everyone collectively that we don't, reward these bot farms. Yeah, like if I'm the guy who got rugged, I don't give a fuck about that. Like, just give me my money. I was grinding for 2 months. And so, yeah, like at the end of the day, I think the only thing I can say is like fair. I get it. I can understand why you're mad about that. And then I think a lot of people piled on because, they were like, oh, this is a guy who's easy to hate. I'm going to get some traction on the timeline if I come and start taking pot shots at this guy. And so the whole thing kind of spiraled out of control. Add to that, obviously, the lockups and the feeling that we're like out of touch. We've raised all this money before. Why are we raising again? People are so cynical now, and fairly so, right? Like, I get it. They're so cynical. They've been burned so many times. Why would they trust that someone's going to turn up and give them a good deal? Like,
what's
why?
your on that point, Kain? That was actually one of my questions. I think you're completely right. The cynicism level has increased, probably correctly, because of how many poor things have been put into the market over the last 24 months, say. So why, like, what is the best answer to that question? Like, why should people lock for a year in a market that has been generally pretty unforgiving for tying up capital for such a long time? And maybe you can speak to the valuation, speak to the quality of the product as we kind of pivot into that, because we've got some more questions on that.
Yeah, so I think there's two components here, right? And again, talking about like adding fuel to the fire, one of the things that I said a couple of weeks ago is, if you don't have long-term conviction in a project, you are never going to have outsized returns. Like, meme coins kind of psyoped people into thinking that you could get a 50x in 24 hours, right? And like, of course, some people do that. Most of them are snipers and bundlers and insiders. Very few people that are sitting at the table playing the meme coin game get a clean 50x, no round trip, have enough liquidity to get out, etc. It's just it wasn't that common, right? Or almost possible. Back in, again, go back to DeFi or go back to like OG, coins like, whatever you want, Stellar or something, right? Like some random token, they would grind up over time, through cycles or whatever. And then, after 3, 4, 5 years, the people who held through everything, through all the FUD, through China shutting down, like all of that stuff would come out with a, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50x. And so I made this point. I was like, if you're not willing to hold things long term, you have almost no chance of having outsized returns. Not zero, but like close to zero, right? And like, on one hand, that sounds self-serving, right? Oh, you want me to hold your thing for a long time, right? But like, also, you've got a guy who's sitting here. I held ETH from $4 like to 1,300 back down to 80. I was still buying ETH at 80 after it had gone from, like, I've been through this journey, right? Like, I came through the other side. I made more money from ETH than I ever made from SNX, which is something that I think people don't realize. And so, I believe that. Maybe it's wrong. Maybe today it doesn't make sense. Maybe I'm washed. Maybe that's an idiotic take. But my belief is that if you don't hold things for a full cycle and come out the other side, it's really hard to get outsized returns. Really hard.
Since we are on the train of addressing the FUD and the criticism, you said one thing, which is that like most people FUDding or hating did agree on the fact that Infinex is a good product, but part of the FUD that I have seen on the timeline, and Lito did summarize some of that, is that some people have been just calling Infinex a wrapper. It's like not something unique. So maybe you can speak a bit to A, what makes the tech stack of Infinex unique, and B, why it is actually needed as a product.
Yeah, so I think there's two things. While we're being like honest and forthright about the situation, it's not like we have incredible product market fit right now, right? We have some decent traction across two products: Swidge, which is a cross-chain swapping and bridge aggregator, right? And the people who use Switch, the people who use Infinex, love it. It makes life so much easier. A new chain launch or a new token launch is like a trivial exercise. You don't need to think about gas. You don't need to think about anything. You can literally just click a couple of buttons and it works, right? Building that was not easy. Like it took, probably like 8 engineers over the course of like 6, 7, 8 months. And my hot take is it's still not as good as it needs to be and could be, right? I still get frustrated by it. As a whale, even this morning, I was buying 250 grand of Zcash for reasons. And it is it still doesn't quite get pricing right. Pricing is a hard thing, right? What is the price of Zcash right now? Is it the price of Zcash on Binance, on Hyperliquid perps? Is it the price of Zcash spot somewhere, some wrapped Zcash token on Coinbase? And so if you don't have really good pricing sources, it's very hard to give accurate information around slippage. It's hard to give accurate information around, what the total all-in cost will be. It's hard to know how to break up a transaction. Should you break up that 250K transaction into 5 transactions? Should you TWAP it out? Or can you one-shot it and it's actually fine? How long should you wait for ARBs to happen? There's a whole bunch of things that could be so much better about Switch, but they're not yet because, we haven't invested all of the resources that we want. There's still a lot of stuff to do, but even in spite of the state it's in today, it is by far the best way for you to trade tokens. It's not a terminal, so it's not for sniping, and it's not Axiom, right, for meme coin trading. But if you want to go from Solana to Zcash, it's the best way to do it. And so that's just one product inside of Infinex. We also have an Earn product. We've got a Hyperliquid interface that will become a lighter interface, as well as a synthetics interface and Aster probably. It will become just like Switch, a perp aggregator where you can trade, multiple perp venues, multiple different, things like basis trades. You can, hedge, do funding rate arbitrage. There'll be a bunch of things you can do there. But we still have a lot to build. It's still not as good as it could be. But I'm very confident that it, as a product today, as it stands, is one of the best user experiences that you have in crypto. Now, part of the problem is, who is this for? Is it for me, a whale who's like slinging 250K into Zcash randomly on a Tuesday? Or is it for, someone who's swapping $10 worth of USDC on, base to Arbitrum, right? And not having a really clear sense of who the customer is, like where is this going to come from, who's driving revenue, who is the core customer, has made it hard. We've ended up building a lot of stuff that hasn't necessarily gone deep, it's gone wide. And so one of the things that I think this year we've started to see are some glimmers of people coming to us and giving us feedback saying, I love this, but, or could you do this? And we were seeing them pay for things. We're seeing them pay for Switch. We're seeing them pay for perps. And they're saying, I just need this thing, right? So, we are starting to get closer, but we're still not there. And so, when we say, hey, we're going to do this at 100 mil val, right? We think that is cheap. And, who's deciding the price? Well, there's a liquid patron market, which is about 350 or something like that, let's call it. So, that's a discount to that. And you can say, that's a scam NFT, NFTs aren't real, whatever. And it's low liquidity. It does a couple $100,000 a day in volume lately. So, it's not hugely liquid, but, it's not no signal. And then you look at, our competitors, direct competitors in the wallet space, right? Phantom, MetaMask, etc., that are multi-billion-dollar companies. Then you look at, what the real target is, which is all the centralized exchanges, which are, deca-billion-dollar companies in many cases, and you go, okay, if these guys are going to grind on this thing for the next 2 or 3 years, they've started to get some product market fit, go and use the product and realize how good it is, then yeah, it becomes a venture bet. It's not like next Wednesday you're going to get a 50x. That's not going to happen. At which point, buy locked tokens, lock yourself up for a year, come back in a year, work for your bags a little bit, right? Come and use the product and don't FUD it on the timeline, and maybe something good happens, maybe not, right? But that's the thesis. That was the thesis. And I get it. I understand why the trenches are like, no, we don't want to be locked up. We want maximum optionality, etc. I genuinely understand that. And so there's a tension there, right? Because on one hand, as an investor, as someone who's done very well out of the space, I have really strong conviction as to how you can do well in the space and how you need to hold things for multiple cycles in order to do really well. But then the timeline is like, I just want to clean 10x tomorrow. You got to reconcile that.
Indeed. And actually, as you mentioned, the NFT raise that you did, most people locked for the year, and there was a middle option as well where you could kind of unlock on an ongoing basis. And whilst you say this one has a 1-year lock, it might be worth going into the details here in the next 5 minutes before we close out to just kind of explain the top line numbers. Then also there is a way to unlock early, I understand. So maybe you want to speak to that to make people understand like what the options are here.
Like if you've known me for a while, if you paid any attention to what I do, right? I like to do things that are sort of counterintuitive, right? And one thing that has been done many times before is early unlock penalties. So do a thing, get yield, but if you leave early, you lose 90% of your yield or whatever, right? It was a classical DeFi Ponzi mechanic, right? And it's cool, but it's very punitive and people hate it. Even as they're going out the door, they hate it. They're like, I have to leave and I need liquidity and I'm getting punished and losing all of my yield. Like you're, like we hate you, right? So I was like, what if we inverted that? What if instead of you losing something, or you can choose to, pay to get an early exit. You keep all your tokens, you don't lose the upside, you pay more, right? And it seemed like an interesting mechanic to try. I spoke to a bunch of people and everyone was like, I haven't really heard of anything like that before. You should definitely try it. And then I started thinking through the game theory of it. And, basically if you don't have any kind of decay, past a certain point, the option value really goes to almost zero. And so it's a bit pointless. And so I was like, all right, we'll put a decay curve on it, add some extra complexity. How much FUD could you get for that, right? Like it's actually a better deal. And again, people sort of looked at it and said, this doesn't make any sense. What are you doing? I don't understand options pricing. I don't understand, like decay curves, etc. Just make it easy for us. Just unlock us. Why are you doing all this work to lock us up? Stop trying to lock us up, bro. Like that was literally the take. And like, I guess my only response to that is we want people locked up because we think that it is the best alignment for the project. We think that it is the best alignment for everyone involved. You will come to love the product, and we still have a lot to build over the next year or two. So just, lock in and let's all do this together, right? But we're also going to make it as friendly as possible for you and give you multiple different, levels of optionality around like early exits and the decay curve, et cetera, et cetera. But here we are. Like it's a tough market at the moment.
Indeed. What in your mind is, once you push through this sale is going to take place, I believe it's open for another 3 days. Are there any other details that you want people to know about? And second, as people are kind of considering making their kind of last minute decisions as we move into the weekend, what in your mind is long-term success for you and your stakeholders? In that longer answer that you gave, you You spoke about like the potential competitors, you spoke about wallets, you spoke about centralized exchanges. Is that ultimately the long-term vision for you?
My thesis is that we have had 15 years of crypto basically being dominated by centralized exchanges. It is the most grim and dire situation to possibly be in, where you're building this new financial ecosystem and trying to rebuild all of finance with decentralized infrastructure. And meanwhile, a couple of guys have databases that have all the money in them. Like, it's wild, right? But if we didn't do it this way, this is just path dependency. This is how you get escape velocity and move forward, right? If it wasn't for centralized exchanges, crypto would never be at the level that it is now. It was a necessary step that we needed to get through, but it is still a step, and we must get through it. If we can't come out the other side and have pure non-custodial platforms that are as good as centralized exchanges, then what the fuck have we been doing for the last 15 years, right? Like, we have not been serious people. And so, at some point we have to break out of this. The centralized exchanges know it, right? But any incumbent is going to cling on to their, revenue for dear life. They're going to fight against everything, but you're seeing it. Coinbase sees it. They've got a chain. Binance sees it. They've got a chain. They have wallets. They've acquired wallets. OKX has a DEX aggregator. That wasn't on my bingo card. Like, centralized exchanges are seeing that this shift is coming, right? So when you have massive incumbents with existing business models that are threatened with internal people, their KPIs are based on how many people they put in the database, that's a hard game to play, right? Pure play super apps that turn up over the next, last 2 years into the next 2 years, right, are going to be some of the biggest winners. Hyperliquid is a great example, right? Hyperliquid is not a super app in the way that we kind of look at it, but when you look at it as a direct competitor to the existing centralized exchanges in a non-custodial way, then yeah, it is a super app, right? And maybe some people will wrap it, and there's people building on it, and the whole super app thing will get weird. But we will replace centralized exchanges. We must do that. And so if we're going to do it, you need to pick who those winners are, because it's the step changes that happen in any industry where the most outside gains are to be found, right? When there's some huge transition in play, go and find the person that you think is going to execute well on that transition and back them into that.
Is this the long-term vision and how you want to measure success? Basically, the market share against the centralized exchanges, or looking forward 1 decade from now, how would you look at the competitive landscape in the future and say, if we achieve this, then we have been successful at that mission?
Honestly, for me, it's much more personal, right? I spent many years building DeFi, helping people build DeFi, investing in DeFi. And at the end of it, I was incredibly unsatisfied, because what I realized is that the way that we had built it, the people we'd been building for, was never going to break out. We were still losing to centralized exchanges, let alone TradFi, let alone Web 2, right? And so for me, it's much more personal. I want to build a thing that allows DeFi to be as good as it was supposed to be. I want a thing that makes it so easy to use DeFi that everyone uses it, because DeFi is just better than CeFi. It's better than TradFi. And the more people use DeFi, the better it gets. And that is my goal. Like, metrics and KPIs and revenue and all of that stuff. Like, I know I've seen this movie before. If you're going in the right direction and you just build the thing that people want to be able to use, it will work out. We will figure out a way through it. But my underlying thesis of all of this is, like, DeFi is too good to sit as this niche, weird thing that a bunch of autists are using. We need everyone to be doing DeFi stuff. The more people doing DeFi, the better the world will be. That's it. It's as simple as that.
Sounds like a nice message to close off on, Kain. Is there anything else you'd like to share before I just share the final details of the sale and the rest of your details?
No, I think I'm good. If you've been, this feels like a one of those lawyer billboard things, right? But if you've been injured by me in Gap Run, hit me up on the timeline. I've already looked at a couple of people. I think tomorrow I'm gonna pay out some bounties to people who, like, there was one guy, for example, who's like, you rugged me pretty hard. And I looked at his timeline and I'm like, look, it's not amazing. Your timeline's not amazing, bro. But he's posted 72,000 times in the last, 3 years or whatever. The guy's grinding. It's like, why am I, like, I shouldn't punish this guy. Like, he's not running a bot farm of 10,000 accounts. His stuff's not botted. He's just grinding. Let the guy grind. Let him live. So there's a few people out there who have reached out and said, like, just let me have my stuff. And I'm like, yeah, fair. That's actually fair. It was not fair to rug you. So if you're one of those people, hit me up. I genuinely am reviewing everyone, and I will try and make it right if I can.
Okay. So, and since the message is going out and you want to follow along, Kain, or if you need to hit him up because he's wronged you in that way, his Twitter handle is RIP your DMs, Kain, in the next 24, 48 hours. It's at Kain, KAIYNNE. And of course, following Infinex, making sure you're up to date with everything there is at Infinex. And final details for the sale for you to take away. It's open until 6 a.m. UTC on January the 10th, selling 5% of the INX supply, 99.99 million valuation, with a 1-year lock with an early unlock option, as we discussed on the show. But Kain, I think that was really, really helpful. I think we touched on product. I think we touched with some of the issues and challenges that you faced over the last week or 2 or 3. And I think that was be super helpful, super interesting for people to digest. So thank you so much for joining us, man. It's always a pleasure to have you with us.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it, guys.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
There we go. That's the show, guys. Just a reminder, we do this every single day, Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. Eastern time, live on X Video, YouTube, and you can catch us on Apple and Spotify podcasts too. We'll be back same time, same place tomorrow. Have a wonderful day. Take care. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.